last time I talked about regrets in the context of things that I found as uncertain. And then I injected one of the greatest questions I've ever been asked into such a context. This time, I want to expand upon the uncertain so that we can put it to bed. So, once more, for context, I am currently a university student, and I won't lie, it's been quite a lonely adventure. That's not to say that I haven't met amazing folks in the time that I've been here, or that the experience itself has confined me into such an area where I know that I can't get out of, or that has forced me to be so self-deprecating as it already has been. But rather that as I got a little older and I understand these paradigms I keep falling into, that a lot of this is my fault. Like a lot of the things that I claim that are melancholic, or that are putting me in a state where I feel like things won't get better, is not just untrue, but it's also kind of ridiculously narcissistic now that I'm looking into it, or now that I'm the outside looking in. Because, with the self-analyzation and the videos I've been releasing, I can't help but feel like I'm making slowly but surely a breakthrough. And part of making these breakthroughs is that you have to rewire the way you've been looking at things in the context of how you've been experiencing them. You can't get too analytical though, otherwise you will lose yourself in the process and you'll end up just going way more insane. Analyzing every last thing, talking about how it impacts your future and the way you perceive yourself. There has to be a sort of equilibrium with the way that you look at things and how you interpret them. And then some things you just have to make sure you throw away so that way you don't lose yourself in such hyperbolic analyzation. And so one of these things that I've come to a conclusion on as a result of having such a journey is that in times where it feels very uncertain, you have no choice but to put yourself in a state where you have to have faith in what's going to happen either the very next hour, the very next day, month, maybe even like the very next year. Who knows, maybe even the very next second. You don't know if you're going to be hit with another $1 million question like I was, like how I explained last video, and how much when you engage as a result of not being scared, like I already mentioned, it can open up a lot more patterns that you never saw yourself stepping foot into. So today I just want to talk about the matter of having faith for what is uncertain. And I'm not going to I kind of find I have like this rule for myself, and it's only for myself. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I actually believe that I'll never be able to have enough influence to change a person's mind, and it's not like I want such a characteristic either, but I try my best not to incorporate faith in the context of any sort of like theology or religion, or the matter of pertaining to any sort of creator, whether it's like Catholic or Protestant, Christian or Muslim or anything of that. Not to have any disrespect on those guys, but I just feel like it's too confining and not so much of a satisfying answer when I certainly place myself on the threshold of God. I am more of a humanitarian, and like I guess where my sense of problem solving comes from is like a backbone of justice and a sprinkle of egalitarianism. So I'm not going to talk about faith in the context of trusting God with plans, or I just don't feel, I feel like that's already been done too many times. And in my personal opinion, I don't want to get too radical, but I just don't feel like such a path serves me as of late. Not to say that the path won't serve others who have just enough of a better environment to have that sort of faith for that type of things, but it is just not my ride, at least for the identity that I unapologetically and proudly reside in. That's how I feel today. But in the context of faith and the uncertain, I can't help but feel like oftentimes I'm in a place that's stuck, where I'm like, it's only going to get this lonelier forever, or that harsh times upon how I perceive myself are going to continue to be that way, or are going to be on a wavelength that is never ending, where that's going to be a contributing factor to my character until the day I live fully and I finally have my last breath. And I feel like in some sense of the word, if you decide to see it that way, well then obviously you are going to manifest such a problem. You're actually deluding yourself to make that continuation of such self-deprecating ideas come to life when the entire objective is that you're critiquing it. You're still contributing to such misery while at the same time you're making commentary about it, knowing that well, if you have a stance to make a commentary about something, you definitely have a stance to make change. And that's a privilege within itself. So I'm not going to be the one that consistently falls into such misery and self-sabotage. Now, of course, this is not for me to ignore reality. As they say, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. I face certain that it is a very isolating time in my life. I am 8 hours away from home. My nicest of friends and the best of environments I'm in are very interim, which is not their fault. They are very busy people and they have amazing lives that I hope that they make breakthroughs in. So, even so, it still gets me into a very how do I put it? I guess melancholic point. I was going to say disappointing, but that implies that I am angry at everybody or like I am let down by what I see, which is not the case at all. I'm glad to have made my spot here in a school like this. I'm glad to have been recording this in a dorm. And what's more is that it could always be worse. And I know such thinking sometimes lacks consistency, but in a case like this, I'll just use that. I'll just use that for now because I know for a fact it could get worse. I've seen worse, at least as a marginalized man. So when I talk about having faith, I just try my best to portray it as your character, as of right now, is not shining due to a temporary environment. And the faster you learn that is okay, the faster when the environment finally clears up to be way better and the sun shines after a rainy day, which is ironic because I love rainy days, you actually will shine brighter than you thought you ever would. Because I guess it's sort of like the value of something when you don't have it versus the value of something when you do have it. And that kind of thing is easy to fall into. As of right now, I obviously crave simpler times. I definitely miss my friends from community college before I transferred to such a prestigious school. I really hope that they're doing well right now. I haven't seen or talked to them. And in the unfortunate instances I've run into, such as getting unfairly banned from Instagram because I was hacked, or just straight up not having a very good environment right now and relying on very specific factors, and I'm going to thank them later. I really have a bunch of good faith actors that when I was on my last legs a couple, I think, months ago, they really did help me at least stand back up. So I do owe them a very grateful thanks for that type of stuff. But again, it's one of those things where you don't know what you had until either it's just out of your hands, but be a little more grateful about the fact that it's only out of your hands temporarily. You can frame not the environment, but your reaction to the environment, where even when that area that you're surrounded or have no choice to be surrounded in is trying to convince you to feel a certain way, that unapologeticness for your faith that you have in yourself makes it so that it doesn't eat you up alive. And when you finally see the end of the light on the tunnel, you will genuinely have real emotions of gratefulness and happiness and overall content with the person that you are towards those that you know you wouldn't just die for, but unapologetically live for. And it's very hard to remember that sometimes, especially if you're not a sociology major or you don't study the humanities. But even so, it is something to consider a lot. And that's kind of the wavelength that I hope that I kind of push for today. When you are in a spot that is very crippling and trying to get you to believe something, that is the ultimate sign for you to believe the complete opposite. If you have to do it to a point where you're perceived, not where you feel, because when you feel it, you do have to feel like once you feel something internally, you have to mitigate it. But to the point where you're perceived, and I'll say it, almost as a narcissist. Now remember, you're not actually being a narcissist. You're just having hope in something you can't see through just yet, because that's the best coping mechanism to get you to the better times, which I know full well are coming on the way. Even with such a dark environment like this in San Diego, where it's the nights are very foggy, not a lot of people are hitting up my phone, and I've lost access to the resources to make sure my network can reach me, especially in times where I'm isolated from them already. But I'm not afraid. At least not right now. Even in such trying times, the obstacles that are presented before me have never been as dire or like serious compared to the ones I faced in the past. So I'm not gonna start being afraid now of something I know I've been mitigated that was a lot more grander in its role as a wall that was in my way. So it really is just a test of consistency, and that's kind of how it's been for a little bit now. So when it comes to the uncertain, remember that all you have to do, or all you can do, in very dark areas or spots, is the obvious message of believing in yourself. But people always say that and then lazily never expand. So I want to do my due part for that. Don't just think that you're gonna be okay. You have to follow a path knowing you're gonna be okay. And even when the answer disappoints you, the best part about failure, like I just said, is that you'll learn more. You don't fail and then there's nothing to take away from it. You learn something as a result of failing. So how many times can you go through failure and learn even more and more, so that not only can you pile such information to get you to build yourself the stairway to both freedom and an environment where you could be very secure and happy, but also the fact that such unapologeticness and extrovertedness, at least for how I've been seeing things, I know for a fact it's when the time comes for me to have all that I want, which could vary, obviously everyone's definition, and I'll expand on what I want some other day. But when it comes to an area, an environment where I know I could feel at home, or have a place where I know for a fact this is not something I'll lose anytime soon, this is a part of me now, your happiness and worth and perception of yourself, irrespective of what others say, will feel hilariously, unapologetically, and most importantly, cathartically real.